Yeah, I'll try to print off the essay. I'll try to print off essays, and I'll give you your official reading assignment just so you have it in front of you. Okay. The election of 1960 pits two gigantic historical figures against each other. These are two men who will both be president, but haven't become president yet. Usually when there's an election with two people who are president, it means one's currently president and one's going to beat the other guy. But that's not the case here. What had Nixon been before 1960? He was vice president, and before that he was a senator. Before that was a congressman. He and Kennedy weren't like gigantic adversaries. I mean, they kind of grew up in the Congress. Nixon actually got a Senate spot before Kennedy did. They're both big anti-communists. Kennedy had been a senator for a couple years. Kennedy obviously came from pretty big wealth, although it was pretty new money. How did the Kennedy family make their money? Does anybody know? Bootlegging liquor during the Depression, or sorry, during Prohibition, rather.
True American value.
I hate for an Irish Catholic to make their way to anything other than ultra stereotype.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It reminds me of my quote this morning that I saw.
That's funny.
In my Frank Sinatra book, he talks about how he endorsed JFK the whole time. His families were tied in bootlegging.
Really? Well, you know what's weird too is Kennedy ends up being one of the biggest anti-mafia presidents, and as you know, Sinatra was no small participant within the mafioso, as it were. What was Kennedy's assets going into the election, do you think? One good thing for him was that his father was really rich and willing to spend his money to win elections. Joe Kennedy, I don't want to say it on camera, not the nicest human ever when it comes to family. The Kennedys had, I think, maybe 9 kids? 8 kids? Most of them were girls. 4 boys. Joe Jr. died in World War II. Ted was a senator and just died in 2010. Then Bobby and John. And they had several girls. One of them was mentally handicapped, and it was kind of an embarrassment for the family. They had her lobotomized and put in a home.
Obviously that didn't work.
Well, it did work. She wasn't with the family. She was lobotomized. You know what lobotomized is? They basically make you. They put a knife in your head and turn it, killing most of the brain cells, but you don't die, and you sit in a home.
You're literally like a zombie.
John Kennedy had his dad's money. He was a war hero. Nixon had been in the war. Kennedy was a bona fide war hero.
A bona fide war hero, as opposed to a fake war hero.
There were plenty of fake war heroes, like Joe McCarthy talked about how many missions he flew in the war and what he did. Once investigated, they found that he did not do any of it. So he was a fake war hero.
I'm writing up bona fide.
So you can write it down. He also was really good looking and rich and had a really hot wife. You don't think this matters, but in 1960, a man's man was good looking, smart, and had a really nice looking chick on his arm. And he had all of it. He was a really smart guy. He was not as smart as his brother Bobby. Robert Kennedy is one of the smartest politicians we've had in a long time. In fact, it's kind of who my daughter is named after. Bobby was ruthless. Jack wasn't ruthless. Bobby was ruthless. Although I like to think he was a nice kind of ruthless.
Yes.
What liabilities did John have? There's a big fat one that starts with a C.
Catholic.
He was Catholic. He was Catholic. And also his father was hated. But he was Catholic. He had to actually convince Americans that he would be in charge of America, not the Pope. He had to give a speech about this. What's funny is 25% of America was Catholic, but the rest of the country didn't trust it. And he had to convince Americans that he wasn't Catholic. He got the South because Democrats vote Democrat. The South votes Democrat. But this is going to be moving towards the end of that. His relationship with his wife was really interesting. I would say you could write a book about it, but plenty of people have written books about it. To say that he was like, today you were like, I cannot believe Bill Clinton cheated on his wife with those girls. Do you know how many times John Kennedy cheated on his wife?
Every Tuesday.
It was actually more than that. It's estimated that he probably had 300 different women whilst in the White House. He actually told another leader, I think Khrushchev, that he didn't feel comfortable if he didn't get a new girl every 3 days.
I think in my biography on Marilyn Monroe, the whole last section is about her supposed affair with him.
Well, and he also had an affair. She also had an affair with Bobby. He never liked these girls. I will say that evidence does suggest that the White House pressured 3 women to get abortions who he had got pregnant, which is also ironic because he's Catholic. But his wife also had a $10 million clause in their marriage that if she ever got an STD from him, then she got $10 million.
That is really hilarious.
You want to hear the really weird part about this is the Kennedy, today we think of the Kennedy family, think about just tons of money and influence. Her last name was Bouvier, it was Jacqueline Bouvier. Her parents thought the Kennedys were white trash. The Bouvier family was old money, old European money. And the Kennedys were a bunch of nouveau riche, hillbilly white trash people. And the mom always thought that she actually married down. Think about that. You married John Kennedy and the mom thinks you married down. After John died, who did Jacqueline marry next? Do you guys know? His name was Aristotle Onassis. He owned literally an island in Greece. He was a billionaire back when it meant to be a billionaire, right? Today everybody's a billionaire. He was a billionaire in the 60s. Right, that's a billionaire. And she also divorced him. She liked the money. But she was adored. And she was a really big asset for him when he went places because she set trends. In fact, the only woman I've ever seen set trends like her has been Michelle Obama. But even Michelle Obama's not close to what Jackie did. Michelle Obama has set some trends. Not necessarily in fashion, but just sort of like in how a late 40s, early 50s woman can look and still be attractive and, you know, do what?
I think my dad had a crush on her.
Yeah, she's really pretty, and people talk about Michelle Obama arms. Have you ever heard people say Michelle Obama arms?
She's ridiculous.
She kind of has guns, yeah. Well, but Obama's in good shape. I mean, they have, the kids have really good genes.
He doesn't wear, like, you know, shoulder dresses.
That is true. I hope he doesn't. I'm sure if you ask many of the people in Kentucky, they think that he does.
I'm sure if Leo was here, we would know.
Kennedy, though, won for a couple reasons. One, he was really anti-communist. So he didn't get out anti-communisted by Nixon. He was an anti-communist. He had ties to HUAC. When people think about Kennedy, they often think about this, you know, liberal from the north. That is not necessarily the case. Now, you can make the argument when it came to civil rights and other stuff, he was more liberal. And you can also make the argument that he probably overdid the anti-communist thing to make up for the fact that he was running against Nixon. But he was by far not that liberal relative to Bobby. Bobby Kennedy was very liberal.
It's so weird that he was he did a lot of civil rights stuff when he was tied to HUAC.
And a lot of that was, he was really good at politics. And that's how he got elected in the late 40s and early 50s. And there has been debate back and forth how much he was a true believer, right, in McCarthy and that. But that's how you got elected. You did not get elected in the early 50s by going against McCarthy. You just didn't. By today's standards, though, in terms of civil rights and stuff, he would be more progressive.
I guess I'm thinking, though, it's like today with mass media and stuff, if it was like, well, you supported HUAC, I mean, you have ties to HUAC, but you also supported civil rights stuff, you're a hypocrite.
Well, and we're going to get to civil rights stuff, because he didn't really, he openly thought that African Americans and whites should integrate everywhere, but he didn't do anything for his first 2 years of being in the office, mostly because he was scared of losing the South. politically. So he was really political, right? Bobby was the opposite. Bobby was adored in black communities. Adored in black communities. And we'll get to that. I mean, he was a different kind of politician. And what the Kennedys have always meant, it's never been, when people think about the Kennedys, it's not about what they did, it's about what they represented, right? Okay. The big thing's going to be TV debates. And I have actually part of the Nixon-Kennedy TV debates, but we're obviously not going to get time, so we'll watch some of it tomorrow if we can, definitely at this sometime this week. This is the first ever televised debate. And even though it's on black and white TV, there was a real big difference between Nixon and Kennedy on screen. Kennedy had just gone to the Mediterranean and had been on a boat for about a week or so, tanning, relaxing. He also, because of, he was sick a lot as a kid, and then he also got even sicker when he was in the jungles and stuff, and he was kind of jaundiced, which made his skin look even more tan, so it made him look like he was like a movie star almost. Nixon was pale-skinned. On TV, Nixon was sweating during the debate. Today, if you go to watch a presidential or vice presidential debate, you walk into place, it's like 12 degrees. Because they're so scared for people to sweat. People who listened on the radio thought that Nixon actually probably did a better job than JFK. But everyone who watched, Nixon was fidgety, Nixon was sweating a little bit, and Kennedy was just cool as the other side of the pillow. And people were like, that's a president. And it really convinced people. Now, Kennedy only won by a small margin, but what it did was convince Americans that he could be presidential. He was young, he was only 43, but this guy can be a president. Today, we oftentimes look at people and decide, does this person look presidential? Right?
Well, a lot of people thought that, like, on TV, Paul Ryan won over Joe Biden. Like,
yeah.
Because he looked a lot better.
He looks president. Paul Ryan is smart. He is. I will say this. I watched Obama's State of the Union address the other day, but I only listened to Rubio's because I was like on the couch and I was tired and I was kind of lying there listening to it. And I thought his speech was great. I mean, I didn't like any of it, but I thought it was good. Right? Really well delivered and a good policy, and he's a smart guy. But what's everybody talking about? Do you remember what they're talking about now?
The water bottle.
Yeah, he got dry mouth and he leaned over and looking at the camera and went off the camera, then came back with some water and took a sip. And that's all anybody can talk about now. All I heard was him talking. I thought, wow, this guy's pretty impressive. And the next day, that's what people were talking about in Macro was his lean over. They had a thing on SNL about it too. It was really funny. But that's what TV does. You mentioned TV with the Civil Rights Movement. TV with politics changes things. People have to be good looking. They have to be presentable. The only one who's the opposite might have been LBJ. LBJ was not great looking. But he won. One time. And he won right after JFK died. Everybody else has been relatively, like, not bad looking people. Right? Obama's a good looking guy for 50. Right? Bush is a good looking guy. Jerry Ford, he didn't get elected. You know what Jerry Ford did in college? He played for Michigan. Yeah, I mean, these people are, you gotta look reasonable, right? Some goofy person like me could never be president, right? Could you imagine what they would write about my ears? It'd be worse than Obama's. Right? Pale skin, red hair, big ears, but I could never be president.
I would be the one writing the crap about you.
I'm sure you would be.
You have to get some like fancier glasses.
Yeah, I thought about getting cool guy glasses, but then I was like, if I get cool guy glasses, then I think people think I'm a cool guy.
I'm just going to point and laugh.
Do what?
You get cool guy glasses and you come to school, I will point and laugh.
Well, not cool guy glasses like hipster glasses, but even like yours are like modern looking. I got these glasses in like 2001, right? And I'm just way too lazy and cheap to go buy new ones. And I'm already married, so who am I trying to impress?
Can I tell you this real quick?
That's
Amanda told
great.
us on Friday that she's just stopped shaving since she's married now, so she just doesn't care anymore.
Amanda who?
My sister-in-law. She's married to Sam. I was like, that is possibly the greatest thing I've ever Yeah, I kind of just like chit chat